As my 7 a.m. alarm went off, the sun came in through the blinds in my bedroom and woke me up quickly. I hit snooze and rolled over, doing everything I could to get 1 more hour of sleep before school started again. I was afraid of getting tired early in the morning, but I was also excited to learn. My name is Sam Richards, and I'm a student at Franklin High. I'm at the top of my class and want to become a doctor. I quickly did my morning tasks, grabbed an apple for breakfast, and ran outside to wait for the bus. Soon, Anna, my friend, showed up in her old Corolla, which was playing pop music like always. She laughed and asked, "Need a ride, Einstein?" She knew I hated being late. With a smile, I jumped in. In secret, I was glad to have company on what looked like a normal May Tuesday. As always, first period went by slowly. I carefully studied my notes in calculus, even though I had a hard time understanding the difficult equations written on the board. The freedom of the lunch bell finally came, and I hurried to the cafeteria to get something to eat. As I grabbed a tuna sandwich, I looked over the rows for a familiar face and saw Anna waving at me. As she ate her taco, we talked excitedly about prom dresses and made plans to go shopping this weekend. Too soon, it was time for biology, which is my favorite class, because Mrs. Wilson is so smart. She smiled at me as I walked into her lab and started teaching me about cellular respiration. I paid close attention to everything she said because I was interested in the complicated dance of molecules that kept life going. Suddenly, a sharp blare came from the speakers above to break the silence. Mrs. Wilson and the rest of the class stopped moving in shock. It said, "Lockdown protocol initiated," in a robotic voice. "Please follow emergency procedures." As students jumped off their stools in fear, chaos broke out. Chaos broke out. "Calm down, everyone. Just like we practiced," Mrs. Wilson yelled over the noise. "Right away, follow me to the storage closet." The chaos was calmed down by her authoritative voice, and we walked in a single line into the room without any windows. As she turned off the lights, we gathered together, barely able to breathe as screams and crashes could be heard from other parts of the building. The door to the classroom started to pound loudly, and howls could be heard. As this live nightmare played out in front of me, my blood ran cold, and I clung to Anna in fear. As Miss Wilson blocked the doorway with a heavy cabinet, she kept her steely determination. It wasn't a drill. Someone broke into our school and locked us in. It was like the thing on the other side knew exactly where we were hiding and was trying to break through. I held my breath because I was sure that each hit would break the wood into tiny pieces. Mrs. Wilson stood firm and used her body weight to make the barrier stronger. More screams cut through the air, building up to a terrifying peak before stopping all of a sudden. There was silence in the school, which was much more disturbing than the noise before. After what seemed like an eternity, a few tentative sobs came from inside our small space. "Is everyone okay?" She spoke in a low voice into the darkness. A flood of yes answers came back, though some people were still scared. I saw that my hands were numb from holding Anna's so tightly. She smiled at me, but her eyes were too far away to see it. As we sat in jail, fearing every little sound that might mean bad things were going to happen, time stopped having any meaning. Finally, there was a crackle from the intercom, and then an automated message said, "Lockdown has been lifted. All of the kids should go to the football field in a straight line to check out." We all let out a collective breath. Miss Wilson slowly moved the cabinet out of the way with a scrape. Pale flashlight beams cast scary shadows on the ceiling of the empty classroom. Someone in the corner was throw up, which I heard. "I'll check outside first," our teacher said in a soft voice. "Stay close behind me and be calm and quiet." When she looked into the hall through the cracked door, she waved us out of the room. There was no sound except for our soft footsteps as we crept through the dark hallways in a single line. Moonlight came in through broken windows, making a trail of sparkling pieces on the floor. I fought the urge to look into every corner because I wasn't sure I was ready for what was inside. As we walked around the edge of the football field, SWAT team members led us to the stands where paramedics were waiting. Parents who were hurt crowded nearby and cried out in relief when they saw their children come out of the water unharmed. I looked around and saw some recognized faces, but there was no sign of the intruder. What had happened in those quiet moments after the beating stopped? I didn't think I'd ever get the whole story. When I finally got to see my parents again, I fell into their arms and started crying too. Their hug didn't erase the pictures that were burned into my mind. Horrors I saw or imagined during that never-ending siege. I knew it would be hard to fall asleep for a long time, if ever again. Unfortunately, the trauma of that terrible biology class wasn't over yet. It had just started to tear at my mind, long after the physical danger had passed. It wasn't like any other day, and I didn't think life would ever feel normal again. The days that followed went by quickly as I went about my daily tasks. I didn't get much sleep because I had dreams about faceless people banging on locked doors while I screamed in silence. I had dark bags under my eyes, but I didn't care about how I looked anymore. The local news couldn't stop talking about what happened, which they called the Franklin High Attack, and they looked at every single detail with a sick curiosity. I tuned out morbid gossip and clung to Anna's company instead, so we wouldn't have to talk about what was still bothering us. Since there was no school for a while cops looked for clues, we spent the afternoons at the mall acting like everything was fine. But now there was a gap between us. A scar that no one could see that changed everything. Every look brought up an unsaid question. How do normal kids deal with facing pure evil? The students got together again in the sports stadium after a week. The administration stood firm in front of the stage, their tired, sad faces showing. The principal said, "We had all been through terrible things, but unity and compassion would light our way forward." Details were given about how the criminal was caught and put in a hospital because he or she was labeled with schizophrenia. Even though justice had been done, there were still scars that therapy might help heal over time. I tried not to cry, because I could relate to that soul's pain. Even though I was angry inside. Why are we? When did the stars line up to put innocent lives in the path of madness? No answer came because none of them could calm us down. A memorial was revealed to honor those who died in the attack. The portraits of the brave people who died were a powerful reminder of how fragile life is. Before we were sent home, silent prayers were said to the sky. But even after school was over, there was still a heavy feeling of grief over the field where we used to play without caring. When school started up again after the summer, there was a sense of unease in the air. As part of the new security measures, cops were present 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and classroom doors had to be locked. These steps made people feel better, but they were also a constant reminder of the breach. My friends and I were cautious and easily startled by sudden noises. We had trouble concentrating in class because we kept having dissociative episodes that took us back to those scary hours when we were stuck like prey. Some people found that counseling helped them deal with their pain, but what could heal soul wounds? As the term went on in a detached blur, dark circles stayed under the reddened eyes. Functionality got a little better every week, but the gap between before and after could never be fully closed. Scars may fade over time, but the ghosts of trauma stay in the rooms of memory the longest, following victims long after the news stops talking about them. When I opened my eyes, I saw sunlight coming in through the open curtains. The familiar glow woke me up from another dream, a restless night with fits of sleep. I looked at the date on my phone with red eyes from studying late at night and stopped. The Franklin High Attack happened a year ago today. Has it really been that long since our lives were turned upside down by such violence? The sounds of beating and the chaos that surrounded our locked room slowly came back to me, just like they did every morning. As I shook my head and scrolled through social media, I saw sad tributes from alumni all over the world who had never been to our school, but shared our grief. It looked like people were still getting better from both physical and mental scars. I was thinking when I heard a loud buzzing sound. It was the first period bell, which rings every day, even when students are sad. When I got up, my legs were shaking, so I wore leggings and a big hoodie for warmth to face this big event. When I got downstairs, my mom hugged me tightly and wiped my tears away, before waving me off to face this demon one more time. It felt like I was walking into an eerie dream when I walked through the school's front door. Every corner was full of scary ghosts. I took deep, steady breaths the whole way to biology class, determined to respect Miss Wilson, who led us through hell. When I walked into her domain, she was gathering things and looking away. She didn't even notice me until I softly called out. When she hugged me, it was the first real sign that the pain she was still dealing with was still making her feel bad. We didn't say a word because we both knew what the other was going through. A PhD expert from outside our group joined us to help anyone who was having trouble with flashbacks or insomnia. His soft advice hit home, and it helped us remember that healing doesn't happen in a straight line, but that over time, we would become stronger. As slow progress took hold, days turned into weeks. I finished with honors, but I also felt sad because I missed people who had died too soon. There was a world outside of school that didn't stop at 10:15 a.m. a year ago, and not many people in that world knew about our shared pain. But we survivors kept going, helped by ties of understanding that maybe outsiders could never understand. We wore our scars as a sign of what we had to go through. Today, I remember everyone who was hurt that day by using my pain to speak out. Talking to kids about mental health warning signs in schools helps more people understand how to spot problems early. Even though nightmares may never end, every life saved turns evil into something useful. It will take a lot longer for our community's spiritual wounds to fully heal than the physical scars. But by telling our stories of strength, we make a way for everyone who is suffering behind closed doors in the long night of the soul.